the day of the show, y'all. It's the day of the show. Brandon, I'm going to be dropping so many deep niche musical theater references that only 10 people are going to understand on this episode. I apologize in advance.
Oh, it's going to be great. There's going to be so many deep cuts today.
Welcome to 8 Bits, y'all. I'm so excited for this episode. I am your co-host, Chloe Condon, and I am here with...
Brandon Minnick. Great to see you again, Chloe.
Thank you. I've got my jazz hands on today because we have a very special guest. I'm very, very excited, y'all, because it's a theater-themed episode, y'all. We're talking theater. We're talking Broadway. We're talking the performing arts, which we always seem to bring up on this show. But this time it's a little bit special. But we'll get into that in a second. That's a sneak peek. We're trying out a teaser right now.
That's right.
But Brandon, it's been a week? No. Longer than a week. We took last week off. We had a big event happen last week that we now have a new president now. So welcome, Joe.
That's right.
How has your week's been, Brandon?
Ooh, I mean, just this week's off to a crazy start. You and I were chatting before the show about just the weather that's going on right now in the Bay Area around San Francisco, and it's wild. There's rain that just doesn't stop. We're getting like flash flood watches and warnings set my way, and I was joking around last night before going to bed. They sent out this warning. They're like, just FYI, it's only a flash flood watch, but it could escalate to a warning overnight. I'm like,
should I be watching this?
Yeah, like, I guess do I just stay up all night, or like do I just check my phone every hour? Am I just taking naps? Like, what do I do? And I mean, I slept. I put on, actually like leaned into the sleep too, because I've got those Bose sleep buds or sleep pods.
Yes, an unofficial product of the show that we're both obsessed with and could not sleep without.
Huge fan. So yeah, pop those in, put on a sleep mask, and I was out and just hope for the best in the morning.
I luckily live on a higher floor, so I wasn't too concerned about having to hop onto Noah's Ark over here in the East Bay. But yeah, it was a wild storm last night. Lots of rain. I got a little scared, Brandon, that you cannot see my view right now, but I had to recently bring in all of our patio furniture because the wind blew it into the air like the Wizard of Oz. And so my patio furniture is just hanging out indoors with me these days. But what a crazy week for weather. I feel, I said to someone recently, I was very embarrassed because I was doing a screen share with them, and I said, please don't judge me for all the tabs that I open. I was like, this is kind of a representation of my brain right now. I feel like the weather is trying to mimic my anxiety.
Chaos.
Yeah, but this is fine. I'm that meme with the mug. This is fine. Gosh, I'm trying to think what has been going on in the last couple weeks for me. Been doing a lot of fun content, Azure content. Oh, I've been streaming with Bit Project on Mondays. So we've been doing lectures. All of the lectures for Bit Project this cohort are public and open to anyone to join. So, oh my gosh, Brandon, you'll love this. So everyone will love this, but Brandon in particular will love this. So we're learning serverless. We're learning about Azure functions with Bit Project. And you can check out all these videos on my Twitch, on Bit Project's Twitch, on their YouTube as well. And the first week, we're learning all about Azure functions. So how to set up an Azure function, how to, work with GitHub, because a lot of these folks are programming for the first time. But on Monday, we were playing with the Microsoft Face API, which if folks aren't familiar, you can use the Microsoft Face API. Actually, you know what? I think I have a link that I'll share. It's aka.ms/bitproject something. I'll get it in a second.
Is it Bitproject for the win, FTW?
No, Bitproject Face something. Let's see. AKA, we're going to get this link. This is worth it, y'all. AKA.ms/bitproject face. Bitproject Face. And we basically had to test. We're using beard detection. We wanted to determine what is the likelihood that there is a beard in this image. And my boyfriend It can. It can do,
Cool.
is this person wearing eyeglasses? Does this person have facial hair? Does so many things that you can make up, all kinds of things. And so we needed a data set. And my boyfriend has a very epic red beard. And so this is the interesting part, y'all, because I've played with the Microsoft Face API a lot. I actually have this Azure, it's a Mario Kart Astrology Face API project where I used cosplay imagers of Mario Kart characters to determine what your cosplay or your chosen Mario Kart player says about you. And the reason that I had to use cosplay images is because the Microsoft Face API doesn't work on animated faces. It only works on real human faces. So we ended up going on this fascinating tangent. Highly recommend checking out the video, y'all, on my Twitch and on Bit Project's YouTube. So we used an image of my boyfriend and we went to Thailand and he had a pancake or a crepe printed of him with this like 3D printed machine. You gave them a picture and they could put it on a pancake, basically. It was in a mall in Bangkok. And it was really cool. And so I have this picture of my boyfriend holding a pancake and we use the Microsoft Face API. And because the pancake was rendered from an actual image of a person, it was able to detect the beard in the image. So then we got very curious and we started clicking around and being like, okay, so maybe a really realistic photo can stump the Face API. So we used the Mona Lisa. It detected a person. So we've been playing around with this with Bit Project. We even tried, of course, this didn't work, but we tried Yoda, Chewbacca, Baby Yoda. I think it's a little too animal-like, perhaps, to identify it as a face. But stay tuned on Mondays because I believe, we haven't officially confirmed it yet, that the project we'll be working on going forward on Mondays, starting on February 8th, is building a data set because we determined after using the Face API, we're like, well, we can't determine if this is Yoda, not Yoda, or Chewbacca, not Chewbacca. So we will be training our own data set using Yoda images and Chewbacca images to determine. So I know this is technology that people have been asking for a really long time. And I'm here to say myself and the students of Bit Project are going to provide this for you. If you ever need to determine if something's Yoda or not, we got you.
give the people what they want.
Exactly. So check out that fun video. We honestly did not know if it was going to work when we started feeding it the Yoda images. So our shock and surprise with some of those images is genuine and on camera. Oh, but Brandon, I want to make sure we have so much time to speak to our guests today. So wait, I'm trying to think, has anything else been, any scoop, any exclusives we need to talk about before we get into our guest?
Like new stuff in the world of tech. I mean, it's been pretty quiet because we're all just coming back from winter break and getting ramped back up for the holidays. And so, yeah, I'm trying to think. There hasn't been any huge major announcements, at least in my world.
Other than politics, not really in the tech world. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we should give ample stage time to our guest. I'm very, very excited for this guest today, Brandon, because I met this human being through the power of Twitter.com. And it is so exciting to me when I find people who come to this industry like from the arts, but particularly from a performing arts background, and particularly when they did the thing, when they did the Broadway, when they did the national tour of Wicked or whatever it may be. And this human, Brandon, they're going to introduce themselves in a second here, but they were on Broadway for 7 years. They did it. They did the dream. They lived the life. They are now working in tech, which is why we have them here to talk about their story and how that transition happened and how they use their tech background. Everyone, please welcome Taylor. We need a pause sound effect.
Hello.
Welcome to the show, Taylor.
Why, thank you. I'm happy to be here. Hello.
Hello. Now, we know this is very different, not a live audience, like Broadway, of course.
It is a live audience.
It is a live audience.
Live.
Yeah, that's true.
It's live, baby.
Live. As you can see, Taylor has all of the boops and beeps and gimmicks and stuff because Taylor is a pro at this streaming thing. We are just learning.
I do work at a company called Twitch, and it has been a great education for me to learn how to do live streaming really well. And I've got all the toys here, and I got the Zoom. Whoop, where did I go? I got the Zoom there. I got a lot of stuff. And when I set up my stream, I have a lot of, I've got a green screen back here. You can see a little shadow mess up over there. I've got out my whole thing.
So you're a producer, you're a set designer, you're a stage
done it
manager,
all, right? But it's it's
amazing.
really great because like in COVID, when you want to be creative as a performer, this is like it,
Yeah.
And there's so much stuff to do and play with and learn, especially if you like toys like me, and I've got like a camera and I got a light, and anybody can have their own talk show like you have here.
Yeah.
So it's just really fucking great.
We gotta get on that sound effect stuff. We need it. Like we need to. So Taylor's gonna be our person that we go to for all of our streaming needs now. So Taylor, how did you find yourself here on this call with us? Give us the origin, the Marvel origin story of Taylor into tech.
So, before I wanted to be a I'm in full screen. Before I wanted to be a computer programmer, before I wanted to be an actor, I wanted to be a computer programmer. And because my parents were in television, and when I was bored, everybody had Macs around, so I just like mess around with the Macs there, but there were no games, so I just like mess around with like the settings and really figure out how a user interface is designed. And at the time, Mac was like it. And I was really interested in computers. And so then in high school, I took AP Computer Science, took C++, and went, there's a lot of math.
Maybe not.
I remember the one thing, it was like, build a pyramid with the zeros. And make
I remember that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I guess the formula is like 2n plus 1. And it took me like a day and a half to try and figure it out. And I was like, I'm out. But I was doing this performing stuff on the side. I'd been performing since I was young, like in school theater, and singing was a part of my family. My mom used to be a professional ice skater and performer, and now she works in TV. She's kind of semi-retired.
Very impressive.
We love.
So like entertainment was always a part of it, right? And so I said, okay, maybe I got to do this musical theater thing. So I dove into the whole musical theater training and went to theater school at UCLA. And then my first audition out of college, I booked the national tour of Jersey Boys for 2 years, and then got pumped up to Broadway. And it was a great adventure, but I always had this kind of like tech yearning in my heart. I said I had 5 roles that I covered on Broadway. 4 were acting roles and 1 was tech support. And so like I was really into like design and website design, so I learned WordPress and I taught myself PHP, and always kind of like played around with that. And then I was like, yep, I think I'm done with Broadway, and said, okay, how do I make this transition? And I was like, okay, how can I get into the ground floor? It's like you're not going to start like a Google or a Microsoft or an Amazon right off the bat. You might get lucky. You might book Jersey Boys in your first audition, but it's not likely. So I said, okay, how can I get in the ground floor here? And I found a tech support job and jumped into that and started working and learning. And it was with a really small company, and took that experience to another company. And at that company, they said, okay, what do you want to do? And so I did like B2B implementation, and then I went to marketing, and then went away from that. And I said, okay, what I really want to do is I want to be in entertainment and gaming, something that I'm really passionate about. I'm tired of this B2B crap, whatever. No offense to B2B people, it's great. But I learned a lot there. And so I really focused my efforts, and one of the avenues that I found was contracting, where you can contract at a company where there's not this like 3-4 month hiring process. You just go on for 6 months, learn a bunch of stuff, and now you have that in your pocket, and you go, I had a contract at this big company, and then that now becomes your resume, just like you would do a performing arts resume. You say, oh, I did this in this show, and I did this in this show. And so I was able to build my resume to a point where now I'm so happy that I can work in entertainment adjacent stuff, and be creative still while still exercising that kind of technical muscle.
Yeah.
And now I do a lot of like, marketing and life cycle and CRM. And so there's a method to the madness there, but it's about, the summary of all of that is you want to do something, build your resume, make yourself valuable, and then go find people who want that value.
And I feel like there's so much, I know that there's so much that you did on Broadway that is transferable to what you do now in your role. I mean, I think back to when I did theater, I did so much of my own marketing, promotion, things like that for myself. But even when it comes to maybe for folks who are joining us on the Microsoft Developer Channel who don't really know what a swing or understudy is, let's explain that to them. So, Taylor, you weren't just in the show, you were covering multiple parts, is that right?
Yeah. So I covered the lead and I covered 3 ensemble roles. And the idea is that the people on stage are also understudies. And so if someone shifts up, someone has to shift under to cover who they shift up to in most cases. And so if they would shift up into a lead role, I would shift into their role.
And that's often why if you go to a production of Hamilton in the before times or things like that, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many different people in different roles. They're usually always in the show, but they're just playing a different part usually.
Yeah, like sometimes you'll see, okay, this person's playing this person is playing this person, and this person. It's not necessarily because 3 people went in. It's because 1 shift over and then 2 shift into those that were, moved around.
So when people ask you an interview question in tech, are you used to change? I mean, you got that one.
All the time.
Well, yeah, it's like, tell us about a time when you experienced change. And it's like the greatest thing that I ever learned was in Broadway is that you go to show up to work and you don't know what's going to happen. You have a set of skills that you can employ, but you are ready to change at a moment's notice and make choices that is going to benefit whatever. And the other idea there is, this idea of just ship it. Right? We're going to put on a show. The train is leaving the station. You just have to ship, right?
The show must go on,
you just got to get on a stage. And that has been transferable. The other thing that you can bring over is now more than ever, I think it just started when I was getting into theater, but like you can create YouTube, you can create TikTok, you can create SoundCloud, you can create all these different avenues for creativity. Just go build something the same way you would build a tech project. And now you have it as something you can point to. One thing I like to talk to is like, one of the questions is, tell us a time when you handled a tough project management thing. And I talk about the time when I did a charity event, which was a Hall & Oates singing tribute night, and handled the booking and the tickets and the venue and the run of show, and so there's all these things that are transferable, that it's about providing value to these interviewers. And I think now more than ever with so many startups and so many companies is they're looking for a diverse set of people, not just people who know JavaScript, although that's a good thing to have. I've been trying for 10 years. But, it's just a matter of going, as we say in the 90s, think outside the box of what stories and what experiences from your life can be transferable to other parts of your life, where it's not just like, oh, I'm just an actor, I'm just a performer. It's like, no, you have skills that you've built to get things done and ship a show. Yeah. So how does that transfer,
I love that, because we've kind of our ethos on the show is to interview folks like yourself who have non-traditional tech backgrounds that didn't necessarily go to college for the computer science degree and get their first internship straight out. And there's a couple things you touched on. One's pretty common. The first one being, you might not get the exact job you want is your first job in tech. And I mean, even myself, I did go to school, I got that degree, and my first job was not what I expected. I ended up working as a test engineer and had to kind of climb my way up. But
it's like the ensemble. You got to work your way up through the chorus, unless you're Peggy Sawyer and you break someone's leg. Deep cut.
Well, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with theater. Is like a lot of people would start in a touring company or start in like a non-act show, and then transfer over to a bigger show. As you said, you have proved yourself to be competent in this smaller risk situation. Let's increase your capability for risk.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that's great that you touched on that I don't think we've dove into this show before is what you're saying about the interview questions and the life experiences you have that absolutely transfer over into the tech world, into the project management world, where when you're in that interview for maybe it's a JavaScript developer role and they ask you about a scenario where you've had to manage a project and schedules and budgets. Well, if you've done it, this is a great example. It doesn't have to have been with a team of engineers. Like you arguably did something that was way harder, and you put on a show and had to, herd all these cats and keep everybody in line, and on top of all the budgets and all the craziness. And I think that's such a great thing to keep in mind, because thinking back, I've worked with folks who were former military, and I remember that also being an answer that came up in one interview I did, where he was like, I used to be a sergeant, and I used to have I don't remember the exact number. Let's say 1,000 soldiers underneath me, and we used to have to do the logistics of setting up camp or moving to a new. Oh man, I'm just gonna butcher all the words. Base station or whatever it is, and he's like, so yeah, I think I can handle a team of 5 people, and you're like, oh wow, okay, yeah, so
Yeah.
Right, but you know what that says is there is a gatekeeping there, and this is the big issue that I have with tech, is sometimes they say, well, you're not available, you don't know what to talk about because you can't talk about KPIs, or you can't talk about LTV, or you can't talk about CAC, all these acronyms that are inside baseball words, whereas you go, what's LTV? And you go, oh, lifetime value. And you say, well, when I ran a weekly theater series, I made sure that I had people return to the show over and over, and that would increase the lifetime value of their customer score, right? And so if you go in an interview and they say an acronym that you don't recognize, and the interviewer doesn't like that you don't know that acronym, that's crap, right?
Yeah.
So
that's a flag.
Yeah.
So there is some like trickery you can do, where if you can just understand these insider terms, you can write stories for your interview that allow you to essentially pass the test using any story you have.
I already am bookmarking this video to send to all the people that I mentor, because this is truly something I believe so strongly in, finding your gimmick in tech, whatever it may be. Maybe you're previously a teacher and you bring all this value to education tech, or maybe you come from the finance world and you go into fintech. But I couldn't agree more, Taylor. And I wish that I had had this conversation when I was a little baby junior developer answering questions in these interviews, because I would get questions like this where, it's a chicken and egg thing. How do you get the experience if you don't have the experience?
Yep.
And I would get questions like, tell me about a time that you engaged with the developer community. And I wish, at the time I didn't have that experience, but I wish what I would have said was something similar to you, like, oh, well, let me tell you about the time I ran my own one-woman cabaret, and it was a charity event that all my friends, we all put it together, and we had like an overall, that wasn't even something that came to mind because the two worlds seem so different. But I love this idea of first of all, we need more diverse, non-traditional background people in this industry, period, point blank.
Right.
But the more that we share these stories like yours, where it's like, look, this thing, like stage managers, your PMs.
Well, it's the same thing of like look,
Hugely
so in chat, hey, Callie and Mojo Jojo are saying the same thing essentially.
Yeah.
Mojo Jojo 86 is saying, he's working in the NHS and now he's a Java dev. What does that mean, right? NHS, some of us may know that, but if you don't know what NHS, I'm assuming it's the National Health Service, right? And now you're a Java dev. What does that mean, right? One question that I got, I remember specifically around that of like, oh, I'm a Java dev, is they're saying, well, have you had experience with Salesforce Marketing Cloud? And I said, it doesn't matter. Right? Every marketing email system is going to have a core set of features that you're going to know. And if they don't have something that is an industry standard, A/B testing, open rate, click-through rate, right? It doesn't matter what the tool is. You can train a tool, but if you don't know the concepts behind it, then it's not going to be there. So I bat that question out of the air and said, I know the concepts here. So same thing with like doing JavaScript, right? You know JavaScript, if then statements, for loops, all this stuff. Your transfer over to like, I don't know, Python or PHP, it's all the same stuff. It's just a matter of how you write it and speak the language, or like you say, SFMC. I don't know what that is.
Well, in the same way that if you and I, Taylor, start riffing on the OBC of, anything goes, Brandon's probably like, OBC, what is that? Like, and I think that's such a thing that we do in tech, because there's a lot of assumed knowledge, and being able to welcome more people in this industry, like absolutely, we got to like break down these barriers and make sure that we're actually asking the real questions that we want to be asking, which is, hey, will you be a good fit for this team? Not, hey, are you familiar with all of these acronyms?
Can you row the boat, or are you familiar with this specific oar that's made out of titanium and wood? It's like, I can row the goddamn boat, you know?
Right.
Yeah, and I've noticed with the acronyms, there's kind of two schools of thought, really, where it's, I noticed some people will use acronyms to almost make themselves sound smarter.
I'm smart.
Like, yeah, like, oh, everybody knows it. You don't know what this means?
I have many leather-bound books.
I'm very intelligent.
But then there's also the folks that just, you use it so much, and especially working at Microsoft, we are certainly guilty of this because Microsoft loves acronyms internally, where you use it so much you don't realize that it's not a common phrase. It hasn't reached that critical mass where like if we say FBI, probably most people watching have heard of the FBI. You don't really have to explain that one, but yeah, it's super important, like you were saying earlier, Taylor, that if you catch yourself using that acronym, like it's gonna slip out.
Right.
Just preface it or back it up and say like, oh, I'm sorry. By the way, do you know what CLTV means? And it's like, customer lifetime value. Got it. Okay, now we're on the same page.
If
we have to pretend like we're...
if you want to be inclusive and get diverse voices in there, and you're in the interview room and you're an interviewer, make sure that the person you're speaking to knows the acronyms that you're using, because they may not know what it is. Yeah. I have people where I say SFDC and they still don't know what I mean, and it's an industry-wide thing. Salesforce.com. I didn't know that when I started, right? But if you go,
I always thought it was data center.
Whatever.
I knew it was Salesforce.
I was like, San Francisco Doritos.
But if I go, oh, SFDC, I'm very intelligent, can't you see? It's like, no, let them understand. Like if I talk about LTV or lifetime value, right? Saying the lifetime. So tell me about it. Like if I'm in an interview, I say, tell me about a time when you increased the lifetime LTV of a customer, right? And you say, just let you know, LTV is a lifetime value, which is the amount of money that you can grab from a customer over the time that they interface with your product, right? Now you set up your interviewee for success to tell the story, as opposed to, haha, tell me about LTV, and also try to guess what those letters mean.
Oh my gosh, I hear LTV and I hear Learn TV, which we're streaming to currently, so my brain just gets jumbled up all the time. I love this comment that we have here. It says, someone in my business made an acronym hunter as a Slack plugin. We can all add to it too, but if there's something you hear but you don't know, we can just do /acrohunt, NHS, etc. Oh wow, it's amazing. Opens things up for people. I love that. I famously, my first day of Hackbright, the engineering school I went to that was full of all of these wonderful, amazing women who came from STEM backgrounds. They were talking about STEM, and I was literally Googling what STEM was on my phone, Taylor, because
like
this
flower,
musical theater girl, I was like, original Broadway cast, STEM. STEM, yes.
Like, these people love flowers.
They love STEMs. They're botanists.
Florists, yes, exactly.
Yeah. And I think like even on top of that, you know, obviously the three of us all have dabbled in the performing arts in some form or another. I know Brandon famously was in the Pirates of Penzance. And we've talked about that on the show before. Middle school theater. But we've all had experience and do a little bit of public speaking. And I think improv and that experience as well like helps from a communication perspective and even, oh my gosh, interviewing, Taylor. Let's talk about whiteboarding interview versus auditions and callbacks, because at least in an audition or a callback, I know what material maybe you're going to give me, but in a whiteboarding interview, that was a lot.
Right. You know, I've been doing improv for 20 years. Oh my God, I'm old now. I said it the first time saying like I'm an old, but I didn't put in the noun, but I was like, oh, that's a funny thing already. So I'm an old. Old is the noun. So it's really about being a kinespheric detective of understanding what your environment is, right? What's going on, and saying, what can I pick up from what's going on? What can I pick up from the feeling of the person that I'm talking to? What can I pick up from what they're looking for? It's when you're in improv, you're trying to take all the data points you have at your disposal and use as much of them as possible. So if you're in a whiteboarding process, and I haven't done a lot of whiteboarding processes, I've done like one, I think, but it's the idea of saying, here's what is presented to me as the offer. Now, how can I make the best thing out of it? And yes, and if they say something like, oh, what about this? You go, yes,
Oh,
and
yes.
let's add something on there. Yes, and it's Adrian says that, yes, and. I know I have a lot of friends who have the yes, and tattoo.
Oh, cool.
But it's also, with improv, you go through a little of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, where you really learn how to take the moment. One director I worked with said, when you have somebody listening to you and they are there, you have control, right? Because they have no choice other to listen to you or to interject. So take that moment, understand you're not rushed, and understand you control the room. And that's why I really think everybody should take an improv class, because it teaches you how to slow down the moment. Here's something that I figured out, and there may have someone has already said this before, I don't know, but especially with smart engineering type people, or not smart engineering, anybody, is sometimes thank you, yes, it's a strong moment, it's a dramatic moment. Sometimes as a technical person, your brain moves faster than your mouth. And it's our job as technical people to make the sausage and allow the mouth to be basically the dam for what the brain is putting out. And you have your brain at this pulse of like da 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 da, but your mouth can't get it out. And that's why people stutter and they go through it and blah, 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 right? So it's a matter of going, how can I get the tempo of my brain and my thoughts in sync with the communication of my mouth? That grounds you. It allows you to take your time and really express yourself when you're in a whiteboarding or you're in an interview, of saying, let my thoughts match the tempo of where I'm going so that I don't get ahead of myself or I don't lose the person in the room. Because all of this is storytelling. You're telling a story to get them across the line for you.
And I found for me, it also helps to explain things as you go. That definitely helps slow me down. And so, especially when if you're speaking on stage or presenting something, you're going to be nervous. You're going to feel that need to rush through it. But it's always good just to kind of catch yourself and say, actually, let's explain what that means, or let's take a step back. This is actually this, and this. And you can break it down a little bit. And not only does it help everybody who's listening keep up, but it also ensures everybody's on the same page as well. So you didn't miss anybody, you didn't leave anybody behind by moving to the next slide, even though your mind as the presenter might be thinking about, okay, what's on the next slide? How am I going to do this transition? Or the next thing I'm going to do is jump into code, and I've got to keep all these things kind of juggling in my brain. But yeah, just slowing down, explaining things as you go also, at least for me, helps, like you're saying, link up that brain to mouth connection.
Well, here's another one. So I took stand-up comedy as well, and I do not like stand-up comedy. I like working in groups. I like working in teams. I like collaboration. But the best thing about stand-up comedy that I learned was how to construct a joke. Premise, turn, right? And in your premise and turn, you have to create breadcrumbs to the turn so somebody understands the turn that you are taking. And that's a lot of, with a lot of like stand-up comedians who start, they think, okay, I'm going to get really heady here and create like a third-degree joke that you have to be really in the know and understand the reference and the inside to get. What you can do is, in order to tell your story, set up every beat so they walk with you down the process, whether you're doing a whiteboard or an interview, to get them to understand and say, I did this, and then do this, and then do this, which gets me to this. And that's the button or the laugh line of whatever you're trying to create. I love one of my favorite stand-up bits is Norm Macdonald doing the roast of Bob Saget. And he does the worst jokes ever. But what he does is he does a great example of him building the beats to getting to the punchline. Even the punchline is really corny or bad. He is taking you along the journey of getting to that line. So like one of my favorite jokes he did was, yes, offline programmer, someone can learn to be funny. It is formulaic. He goes, Bob, you have a face like a flower, a cauliflower. As if your face was as ugly as a cauliflower. And the way he said it, he made sure that you understood exactly what it was. So the premise was you have a very pretty face like a flower, and the turn is actually a cauliflower. And then he even explained it even further as saying that your face is very ugly. Another one of my favorite jokes that he does is, well, tonight you have a lot of well-wishers, and including a lot of people who would like to throw you down one. A well, that is. Being that there are people who would like to murder you using a well. He takes you through the entire process of the joke, the turn, and then if you missed it, he lets you know how it worked. So whether you're in interviews or whiteboarding or all those things, it's like you have to understand your audience and get them to come with you on the journey.
I love that.
Great advice. Yeah, great advice for... It's funny because normally I feel like we speak to the interviewees of the world. So like, how do you get that first job in tech and how do you ace the interview?
Right.
But it's so true. The interviewer really affects how the interview goes. And I think so far we've found like if you're spouting off acronyms and pretending to be really smart, you might lose the person you're interviewing.
And also reading the room. I think something that Taylor mentioned earlier, like knowing who you're in the room with and who you're performing for. I mean, I can speak as a woman in tech. How many times have people said things to me that have immediately made me want to say no to a job offer? Like, oh, hey, thank you so much for coming in today. We actually have another woman who's coming in later and interviewing for the role. I think you guys would really get along. What if I said that to any guy that I interviewed to, right?
You must know things about each other because you're both women.
Yes.
Probably best friends.
Yeah,
we'll
right.
talk about our nail polish together.
Right.
I mean, there's so many moments that I think even, if you are, I've been in situations before at conferences where the swag at a booth has been men's boxers. And don't worry, we have stuff for women too, baby onesies. Read the room, So I think when it comes to these things, it is very common where you will go and interview at a company and they'll really spout off a lot of we have a very diverse team. We have so many women who work here and you get interviewed by all men.
Mm-hmm.
I think casting's important when interviewing.
Yes.
I think representation is important when interviewing. And you are really, I always tell this to my mentees who are typically junior engineers, but it's important. It's hard to remember this when you're a junior engineer and you're just struggling and you're like, God, I hope I get it. Because you want it. You want it so bad. But it's important to remember that you are in demand as well. You should be picking up on these signs in the interview. It is so much better to say no to the role and not have to go through a whole other cycle of interviews again than to take a job where you can tell the signs are there in the interview. So it's an interview. You're interviewing the company as much as they're interviewing you, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. It's, you I think the objective in a lot of these rooms is, and the same thing in an audition room, and the thing I always hear from casting directors is they go, we want you to be good, because if you are good, then our job is over, right? We're not here wanting you to fail or to be smarter than you, although sometimes, anyway. But they want you to succeed, and if you succeed, then everybody can go home, and we've got a new, person on the team. I don't know where I was going with this.
I will tell you the biggest, most wonderful gesture that has ever been done to me in an interview, and is why one of the many reasons I accepted a role at my last company, Sentry, was halfway through, they realized that I had only been interviewed by men, and they replaced one of my interviewers with 2 women. And I thought, that is so thoughtful, and this is a company that a woman and a non-binary person, I should say.
That's
and
great.
the thought process there was, oh, they're thinking about this. And this shows to me, this is a company that I really want to work for if these are things that they're noticing and things that they're keeping in mind. And I think that goes to show on a lot of career pages, on hiring pages, and a reason why we took a lot of care at Sentry to make sure our page represented who we were and what we did there and what the people looked and acted and sounded like and what we actually believed. I think there's a lot of jargon in corporate America where we say, here are our core values or our beliefs, right? And they'll have it at a startup up on the wall. But what do those words mean, right? It's going back to the acronyms. Like, what does this pillar that you're representing? Because I'm seeing diversity on the wall, but I'm seeing a much different story in your hiring process.
Yeah, there's and one thing I want to talk about being in the room is your objective as an interviewee is to put the person you're talking to in comfort.
Yes.
Try to make them as comfortable as possible. Don't make them nervous or uneasy or feeling like they need to save you. Same thing for the interviewer. Make sure that the person you're interviewing is comfortable, because you want someone to be comfortable so they perform at their best ability, and it helps build rapport. But back to that point of, I think there's a lot of things that we end up doing where we think, okay, all of this stuff is very efficient and very high leverage. And they go, we should get rid of X, Y, or Z. Why should we have Chloe interviewed by these people? It doesn't matter who it is. And it does matter, because sometimes the things that you think don't matter to the people who are affected by it. Whether it's God, I was talking about something about today of we shouldn't ask these people X, Y, or Z. And I said, we should, because even if we don't use it, it shows that we are listening and we're trying to get them invested in what we want to do. So I used to work at a camp, and they said, some people say it's not the way you say it, it's how you say it. Sorry, it's not how you say it, it's what you say. And they said, no, that's not true. It's what you say and how you say it that's important.
Yeah. Words matter and actions matter.
Right. And I love the strategy that Metzen Around uses of juggling broken glass in a room. That really helps put a nice piece of ease in the room, Metzen.
Yeah, I hear they say it's like drinking 3 cups of coffee in the morning.
Oh, mama.
It wakes you up. You're ready to go.
By the way, they now have Coca-Cola mixed with coffee. Great way to start your day.
Oh, wow.
I total aside.
Yes.
I learned about that a couple of years ago. I was in Panama, and a guy I met who lived in Panama City, he was like, yeah, we do that. Like, we'll just take a coffee and pour Coke into it. And I was like, that sounds crazy.
I've heard about wine and
of course
red wine and Coke. In Japan, I saw a table thing that was like red wine and Coke, and I was like, apparently it's something that is popular in other countries. Who knew? I know. I need the Zoom in future.
Although, I will say, when I did my experiment, when I got back home, when I lived in San Francisco, I grabbed a cold brew and a Coke, and yeah, I was awake for like 36 hours straight. It works.
More time. Yeah.
Does it taste good?
It's definitely a new taste. Is something that
that's not probably the answer I wanted.
It's something you've never, or at least for me, it was something I never tasted before. And I will say, by the time you got a couple sips into it, it wasn't bad. And so his thing was like he does a lot of driving, and so he needed to stay up, whether it's 2 a.m. and he's got to meet his deadlines. And so for him, it was just, let's stay awake. And so, yeah, I guess if you ever find yourself in that situation, hopefully we don't have any crazy stressful deadlines out there. But
when I did children's theater early in the morning, I relied heavily on Red Bull, pineapple flavored.
Oh. or Monster Energy.
Extreme.
Monster Energy drink.
Well, let's see. Do we have any questions in the chat here for Taylor? I bet PJ has some questions.
By the way, Adrian, do they mix everything with beer? I know they have a Rattler, they have a Diesel. What else do they mix with beer?
Wow, Diesel. Such an appetizing name.
Right.
Yum yum.
Or they go, oh, would you
Really
like
gets the
these?
point
Oh,
across. Like
you
you
want
know
to-
what you're getting into when you're drinking
Yeah.
diesel.
Ooh, we've got a question here. Taylor, what do you love most about what you do now?
Um, I love that I'm creating entertainment and I'm helping create entertainment. I'm also, as a creator and a former creative professional, it's like I want to help other creative professionals do what they do best. It's like when I saw Chloe and she was starting streaming and like being a really great advocate. I was like, oh, this is a really, really great person. I was like, I just want to help her create something awesome, and see her thrive. And that's why I'm here, is because I want to see this thrive and do well. And so I really love setting up people for success. I think the other thing, there's two other things, is like in operations stuff, I do a lot of work in no code. So when you build out like a no code sequence and it works perfectly, you're like, oh, it's like I did magic. And the
hacker.
other one is using, yes, elite hacking. And then the other one is when you create a UX pattern that forces people to do what you want them to do in a great way. It's awesome. Like you set up like a landing page or a form field and they fill it out perfectly and it's wonderful and use the right language and then it comes back in. That's an amazing magic trick.
It's been
That is a great feeling.
Yeah. And I think also I'd be really interested, Taylor, in knowing what your feelings are about just the performing arts landscape now. We're in this digital era during COVID-19 where everything is online.
Yep.
Broadway is shut down right now. All of the regional theaters are shut down. We've seen some things like Ratatouille the musical, and there was a really cool Broadway performer, I think in Beetlejuice, who did an at-home Floyd Collins production made completely of cardboard boxes.
Wow.
Which has been so cool to see. Have you seen any theater or performing arts, I guess I should say, during quarantine that has been interesting to you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like understand the medium that you're pushing on. If you're using TikTok, like don't try and do, a 30-minute talk show. I mean, they have the live thing, whatever, but it's like it's quick clips. Or on Instagram, it's very in a certain way. I think one thing that a lot of people run into when it comes to like live versus VOD is what makes live unique. It's this conversation I'm having with chat with Hey Callie and Mojo Jojo 86 and that it's live and we can ask questions. That's the function of live.
Yeah.
If you end up doing just a talking head video on Twitch or YouTube Live or Instagram Live, like what is the purpose of it being live? Just do a video on demand. I would say things that I'm really drawn to right now on Twitch are people who build these amazing performance experiences. Like one of my favorite is the Sushi Dragon.
Oh yes, we looked at that yesterday with you. I'm amazed by people on Twitch who are doing full kind of immersive interactive performances, and in a weird way, Taylor, I kind of hope it rubs off into the live theater world because the interaction is very cool.
Oh yeah, it's that, I think like St. Vincent does some of it too. Another one I like is Dandy Does It, and they have the controllers on their hands and they dance around the room and they got a green screen and they make effects happen and they do different things. And if you're a developer, this is a great moment for you to create a stream. There's a great guy that I always promote named Cruiser8. And Cruiser8, and he's got this thing called Cruise Control, and it's a pseudo code library for controlling Twitch interactions. And so you can have chat make things go, and have channel points make things go, and you can have this interactive art experience with chat building things out. Dandy does it, Sushi Dragon does it, and so there's a lot of really amazing webhooks and API calls you can pull in to create really fully immersive interactive performance experiences. And even if you're just somebody who wants to turn on a camera and go, like, what is your show, right? What is your live show? If you're doing it on Twitch, I like to liken it to a radio show where it's like drop-in content. Somebody's not going to hang around for the entire 2-3 hours of your thing, but they might come in for 20 minutes. How do you allow them to have context when they drop in? And then with YouTube, it's like, it's video content. Make video, edit it, build an experience from beginning to end. There's all amazing opportunities for you to do stuff, and you're not going to know unless you say the two words.
Do it.
Ship it, you fools. You just have to ship it.
Just have to ship it. Yeah,
Oh,
I couldn't
man.
that's like been the wonderful thing about, so I recently have just been going on to Twitch and browsing, just being like, what are people doing on here? I'm so curious. And I was before doing this browsing, only following a drag queen that I love named Vivacious, highly recommend, who DJs almost every single day. But it's fascinating to see everything from a meditation sound bath to having people there's ASMR Twitch, there's crafting Twitch, there's just watch me click on my keys for a little bit Twitch. There's so many things.
The people do live coding on Twitch, and what they'll do is if you subscribe or you put in bits or do any of those things, they will put your name into the comments of the code, so it's still an interactive experience.
Oh, cool.
So, like, say, okay, I'm programming this thing. Let's test it. Hey, Callie, you just gave me 15 bits, or oh, that's a really great idea. I'll put you in the comments. This was Callie's idea.
I love that.
And so you can make it an interactive experience, but it's just like, imagine you're hanging out with your friends, because that's what COVID has done for all of us. It has made us have these pseudo-social relationships that we need and we crave.
Yeah.
So you can create those pseudo-social experiences on YouTube Live, Twitch, whatever, so that people feel connected and have a community that they feel like they're a part of.
It's almost more intimate than a live event, because you can have these one-to-one interactions that previously, as a speaker at events, there would be a line of people. Sometimes people would have to go and get the lunch or go to the next talk. So I've, in a weird way, kind of enjoyed, it can be overwhelming sometimes, but I've really enjoyed being able to have these connections with people I wouldn't otherwise be connected with at all.
Yeah. Well, there's two here. I think it's Chael codes, of people who have built extensions and experiences where, like I said, it's all about live is all about stimulation and response. Is you press a button and you get something back, right? So you can build something and it just changes the color. Or as Chael code, I think I'm saying, is it Chael or Chael? Clarkio built an extension that allows folks to highlight and leave a message on a line of VS Code. It's like all people want to do is be recognized in chat. That's what I'm trying to do with all of you in chat, is make sure I call you out to know that your stimulus is getting a response. And that's what's so cool about live.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I really love about, it was already happening before COVID, but kind of like we were saying earlier, like COVID certainly accelerated it, is this move to online and, like you mentioned, forming these communities, because there's so many like niche hobbies, niche things that you might think, like, I'm the only one I know in the world that enjoys crocheting and writing JavaScript.
That's why I'm taking apart all my old 90s toys on stream. I'm like, surely I enjoy this. Surely some other people are going to enjoy this.
Yeah. Right. And that's the thing, like, I guarantee you there's hundreds, if not thousands of people around the world that also love those things. And you get to share that passion with them. And this is a world you would have never known existed. These are people you never would have met or come across in day-to-day life. And I just love how we can just literally go to a platform like Twitch and say, start.
Yeah.
And you're done. You're going.
And the other fun part is you meet these people in these communities, and then when we can meet each other for real again, you go to conferences and you go, hey, this person from my chat,
right?
How are you? Nice to see you. Oh yeah, and InstaFluff builds some really good interaction stuff as well.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm so excited. I'm newer to Twitch. I just became an affiliate, and I'm playing around with all the boops and the beeps. And I think that's what makes me so excited, is that, previously we would give a talk and it'd be like, hi, I'm this person, I'm just going to talk at you. But the ability to be able to have an ongoing conversation while working on something. I tuned in yesterday to our coworkers Tierney and M. We're doing a live stream on Twitch of they were setting up GitHub Actions, and I got to join the chat, and then we started talking about cheese because Tierney was snacking on some string cheese, and then the conversation turned to cheese. So I just love that this would have never happened if Em and Tierney were doing a live talk. It would have been, we're on the stage and we're on, and I love that this has now become this format that is a lot. Not only do I think it opens it up to more people, because I think there's people who are able to tune into this that maybe wouldn't have previously attended a tech conference.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, there's all these niche, bizarre things that people love. I was encouraging our guest on my show yesterday, Lorena, clown turned engineer, that she just needs to do a Twitch stream of her pug, and then she showed me a video of it snoring, and I'm like, I would watch this.
Yeah, exactly right.
This
There
is
was
a stream.
There was a stream from a while of like a dog shelter, and you just sit there, and, or there's one of like a chicken coop, and it's just like, hey, nice window into life, you know, because we can't go out, so let's just hang out and watch chickens and talk and chat. One of the coolest interactions recently was Games Done Quick was a few weeks ago, and anytime there was a clap emote in chat. That's what we call them on Twitch. They're emotes. Clap emote on Twitch. There was a crowd, and an animation of somebody clapping would go. And if more claps would go on screen, you'd see the hands go more and more and more, and the sound would get louder and louder. So as a creative and as a coder, you can create these experiences that are interactive with the crowd, you know?
Yeah, I love, and because we know Taylor from doing musicals. Very rare to be able to acknowledge the audience, except in very specific, certain instances in
That's
particular
right.
shows.
Turn off your phone.
Yes, turn off your phone, Xylophone. We're coming for you.
Please unwrap your soothing lozenges before the show.
And it's been so interesting for me because I used to say something in a talk that I gave, like, shout out to the nodders. Like, back in the before times, you'd give a talk and you're like, is anybody, oh, there's someone nodding. So I know at least this person's listening. And I feel like the people in the chat, especially when you're streaming and it says, 60 people are watching, there's 2 people active in the chat or something, you're like, the nodders. I can have these whatever, they get it, and I can have this interaction with them.
Right. Well, if you like right now, you could type in /poll and take a poll, or you could say, "Hey, chat, do you like pineapple on pizza? 1 for yes, 2 for no." Instant interaction. So let's see it right now. Do you like pineapple on pizza? 1 for yes, 2 for no, or do a poll. But that's interaction. It's like you can put something out and get something back. No is not a number.
Right. Oh gosh, I love all of this. I'm here for, like, I'm very torn, y'all, because I cannot wait until I just keep picturing us being back in a concert venue or a theater and being around people and hugging all our friends. But I equally am excited by what this has done to be able to open up more things to more people on a digital scale. So I'm hopeful and optimistic by how this changes not just the performing arts world, but just how we present content.
Yeah. I'm gonna put some links in chat here. There's Sushi Dragon. Here's Dandy Does It, who I think is it's identical to the previous one you sent. Okay, I want this. Let me put a space here. There we go. Dandy Does It. And then another one that I've been liking a lot recently is Clone Corp.
Ooh.
Clone Corp. Yeah, Clone Corp does interesting stuff too, but it's all really crazy, weird, adult swimmy stuff. Oh, there's also like VTubers. The VTuber world is amazing. And V-streamers, where they have a digital avatar that tracks their face and does animation on screen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, oh no! Somebody's got mods have to allow me links, whatever. So
Okay,
anyway,
we'll share them.
We'll
put them in the notes.
Yeah. The Sushi Dragon, Dandy Does It, Clone Corp, and then so like the V Shoujo group. So if you were to look up V Shoujo, Iron Mouse is a VTuber, and then there's one more I was gonna say.
Iron Mouse sounds like a cool metal band that I want to go see perform live.
Code Miko has a full body tracking suit and full Unreal Engine 3D motion capture, and she does a talk show, and it's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm just so excited. Taylor, you are now our official Twitch correspondent for the show. We're going to come to you to help us get all the beefs and boops that we want on here. Thank you so much for coming today. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Twitter.com/Taylor is here. And go see the Killer Instinct promo I posted, because that's going to be a lot of fun.
Ooh, tell us about that.
So I work for Twitch Rivals, which does esports shows on Twitch, and we're having a Killer Instinct tournament which is a fighting game, and we got the original announcer who does like, Killer Instinct, and it's amazing, and he sounds great. But I just posted the trailer. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So exciting.
And then another one we got is the Streamer Bowl. We got 30 football players, 30 streamers, and 30 community players playing in the big Streamer Bowl coming up. And they're playing Fortnite trios, so that'll be a lot of fun.
Adrian, I thought the same thing. I thought Killer Instinct from Bring It On initially, the musical as well. Thank you so much for joining us, Taylor. That is our show for today. But
My
I can't
pleasure.
wait to see all of the exciting performing arts type things that we'll do together and we'll bring to this world. And thank you for sharing all your knowledge. I'm like taking notes for myself.
Hey, and
That's
if anybody has any questions about streaming, feel free to contact me on Twitter. My DMs are open. Happy to help you out because I just love creating cool stuff and helping people out.
Well,
Love
thank you
it.
for helping enable it. And from both of us here at 8-Bit Studios, aka our own homes, that is all for today. Brandon, play us out.
We'll see you next week.